Welcome back to Podcast Demastered. I am Wade, and I'm here with Chelsea as always. And this week, we're going to be talking about a comic book slash movie, I guess you call it, called Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So how are you doing today, Chelsea?
I'm doing well. I'm definitely been thinking about Scott Pilgrim because I just watched the movie the other day.
This is your first time watching it, right?
Yes, my first time, and before that, I decided to read all 6 volumes of the graphic novel series before that. So I think I have finally dived into that world. But boy, I have a lot of feelings, lots of mixed emotions about things, but that's where I'm at.
That's probably okay with this series.
Yes.
That's probably healthy. Let's call it that.
That's very fair to say, yes.
So what was your first So let's see. You read the books first, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was your initial feeling about the books?
I kind of liked it and I kind of didn't. It was very interesting. I'll give that. Like, it's a very creative storyline and everything, and I think I had the conflicting emotions because it deals with some almost kind of like heavier topics and kind of like dives into like relationships and more about like growing up, but it also has this cutesy like stylized characters, and so it made the characters almost more likable to me than I realized that they're not really likable. Because you're like reading about it, like, oh, go.
It's like when you start to
get
to know them as people, you realize like how not good, amazing people they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where I was excellent. At with
that. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Oh, like so just to jump right in, my major thing was I watched the movie first. I was dragged to the theater way back. I think this was like my freshman year of college. When the movie came out, I was dragged there by a big group of friends, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go watch this movie. It's super nerdy. You'll love it." And I was like, "Okay." I never heard of it. Like, I don't even think I'd seen like advertisements for it or anything. And I remember initially leaving the movie, and I was like, "Wow, that movie was that was really cool. There were so many awesome references and like the style and like the people in it. Like, it was such a good movie." And then a bit later, like after college, I was like, "Well, I'll read the books. I've never read them. I'd love to." Which of course now you're getting lots more information on everything than the movie can just possibly touch upon. And I'm understanding in my first read through of the books, like, oh, they really sugarcoated Scott in the movie because book Scott is not cool. He's not
he is not.
He's the main character, but like main character energy is not the term you would use to describe Scott Pilgrim. He is just...
I have plenty of other words, yeah.
Yeah, he's not a very good guy. I mean, he's like 23. You know, he's learning and growing all the time, but like... Good Lord.
It's still not quite an excuse for where he's at.
No, not where he's at. No, not at all.
Yeah, which... we could probably give a little more background before we dive into more of our thoughts. Probably briefly give our listeners, especially those who are not familiar with Scott Pilgrim,
for sure,
what the initial premise of the story is, both in the graphic novels and in the movie.
So let's see. Let's give it a shot. So it takes place in Toronto.
Yes. They want to remind you it's in Canada multiple times.
You never forget.
At least in the graphic novels. Yes.
It's. You get Scott Pilgrim, who is the star of the show, I guess, whatever. And he's 23, so he's been out of high school. He's been through university, and he's a piece of work. The essential story is that he starts to date this girl, Ramona, and then he finds out that if he wants to continue to date Ramona, he has to defeat her 7 evil exes. It's very video gamey in how this is set up. And then as you go through, you get cool fight scenes, and it takes place in the real world, but it's very not real world at all.
It's how Scott views the world, or what he thinks of himself and others.
Mm-hmm. So,
But I think
and
you need
that's
it.
the gist. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, but we can't forget the very initial setup of Scott that he is
Oh,
apparently depressed,
yes.
and it's been over a year since his previous girlfriend broke up with him. So what does he do? He gets in a new relationship with a
With
17-year-old
high
high
schooler.
schooler
Yep.
with the unfortunate name of Knives Chow. And the idea of telling his friends that he is dating somebody who is Chinese. So that's the initial characterization of him.
Catholic
He's
schoolgirl
23.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Yes. With the
With the
uniform
uniform.
too. Has to, yeah.
Can't forget that.
Yes. And then, oh, the other thing, Scott, he's currently not working. In the movie he says he's between jobs.
Between something and
No
something.
motivation. Yes. Uh-huh. And then he basically mooches off of everybody, and
That's a
he doesn't
polite
do
way
much.
to put that.
Well,
he well, like his living situation, he lives with his best friend Wallace Wells,
yes.
who is gay, and Wallace
And
pays
they don't
for
let you forget it.
and yep, best gay friend Wallace Wells. He Wallace pays for the apartment. He pays for all the food and frequently takes Scott out, like, for takeout and other things. All the bills. Scott's bus
Everything.
fare, like everything.
Yeah. Gives him a coat
Everything.
or something, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And his parents, Scott's parents aren't around because, like, Scott graduated, and they left the country. They're like, we're going to Europe, bye. So Scott really is, like, on his own, but he's not getting it together at all.
Yeah. But he does have a sister that's around who seems way more productive than he is.
Oh, Stacy. I forgot about Stacy.
Yes, Stacy. So, okay, I was a little confused because when I watched the movie, I could have sworn she said she was his older sister, but in the, graphic novel, she's the younger sister. And it's even more hilarious that she's the younger sister.
Well,
I don't know if
it's so weird because it's labeled so many different places and so many different ways. Like,
yeah.
I feel like she is the older sister, but it's one of those things where she's like, but I'm not old. So she doesn't want to...
Well, she's more mature.
She's amazingly more mature than he is. Or maybe it's a thing where she's actually younger than him, but she takes care of him anyway. So she just claims to be basically like the older sister role. Because there's a little brother too that doesn't come up in the movie, but he is the little brother. Like, he is the youngest of the bunch of them.
Yeah. Stacy knows what's up, what's what. She gives it to him straight. And she's like, you are dating a 17-year-old? What are you doing with your life?
Scandal, tell me everything.
Yes.
And in the movie, she's played by Anna Kendrick, and it's just so perfect.
It is. There's a couple moments in that film where, the look of disgust and confusion on her face, it was kind of like, I so relate to you right now. This is me watching this movie.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I am Anna Kendrick.
She's, the only, real person in the movie, I feel. She's the one reacting, correctly to these situations.
I would also say Aubrey Plaza is, too. She's just way over the top,
Julie.
but it's just... Oh my gosh.
She's just such a jerk all the time about everything, though. She's that girl. Well, I mean, really.
She is, but...
She's just Aubrey Plaza. She's just Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. But, I mean, she does, at least definitely hands it to him in the movie specifically, all the time just confronting Scott, being like...
Oh, what little time she's on screen. Oh, yeah, she's there to just ruin his life, and he's just like, oh my god, get away from me.
Yeah. And but she's telling the truth.
I mean, she sure is. She sure is.
Oh, man.
But, so in the story, we start with Scott dating the high schooler, Knives, who's never had a boyfriend. They've held hands, once. There's nothing, inappropriate going on, per se, outside of the situation just not being a cool situation, right?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, a week or two into, his relationship with Knives, he meets Ramona, And then from there, that's kind of like when the actual plot begins.
Yes. Ramona, the edgy new girl from the United States.
The hipster,
Mystical
mysterious
land.
hipster girl from
Yes.
America. She's American.
Oh, American.
Oh.
And she has colored hair. Ooh. Yep, and she works. She works
She's
for
got a
Amazon.
job. She sure does. Amazon.ca, no
Yes.
less.
Yes. What's the website again for that?
What's the website for Amazon.ca? Oh, poor Wallace.
Yeah.
You know, like I like Wallace so much more in the books than I do in the movie. Like the casting in the whole movie, I feel is like perfect. There's just not enough time with the characters to like go into like who they are really. In the movie, Wallace is more just like, yeah, I take care of you, and I'm the gay roommate, and more often than not, the comic relief.
Yes.
But in the book, he's more like present. He has more roles in the book, I feel. Being like Scott's like trainer, like anytime a fight's gonna happen, he's got to be trained by Wallace, and you know Wallace takes that very seriously. But
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not even just Wallace. It's just, in general, like, a lot of the characters got a huge disservice in the film because there's a lot more depth to those characters.
You get like this is kind of who they are, and we don't get time to go past that point. Like Scott and Ramona and Knives, I suppose, are like the only people who get actual growth in the movie, or time to grow, I should say, a chance to grow. And everybody else is just like, well, here is just kind of who they are. Now let's just move on. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, because I'd say the person who had the most growth in the movie was probably Knives. Hers had the most well-rounded story out of anybody, which is hilarious because she's not the main character.
Right? Well, like, because the other two, Ramona and Scott, are just... They just got to get over themselves, basically. Move past their own
They're
problems.
perfect for each other.
But Knives gets pulled into all of their drama, you know?
Yeah.
And then she has a typical, like, coming-of-age situation story going on in the middle of all the nonsense.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you're familiar with this. So, when the movie came out, I think the movie came out in 2010, the final volumes weren't out yet.
They weren't. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
The movie originally had a completely different ending, but when it went through the test audiences, they decided to change it, and then that ended up being a very similar ending to how the graphic novels ended as well.
So the writer ended up reflecting more of the movie? Or was he there to kind of help and like push in the direction of, or because if you compare like the movie ending to the book ending, it feels very similar, just the movie's version is just so much more condensed, like crazily condensed.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about it, so I'm no expert on what happened, but yeah, I think the writer was really involved in with the film process, and then he was kind of fine with when what the original idea, the ending of the movie was. He's like, well, that's different, but I'm doing my own thing. And then they reevaluated that ending, and they're like, oh, we should go this way. And he was like, yeah, that's cool, because that's like kind of what I'm doing already anyway. So.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I think it was like a similar way. Like, I don't remember all the specifics, but I don't know if I should spoil it right away of how the ending was supposed to originally be.
Ooh, do that. I've never heard that. This is new information for me.
Yes. That Scott and Knives were going to get back together in the end.
Were they?
And he was going to move on from Ramona.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a complete disservice and backwards on Knives' character growth.
Yeah.
And so when the director and screenwriter of the film ended up changing it, and then they talked to the actress who plays Knives, she was like, oh, thank goodness. I love this ending. This is so much more empowering for her character. Like, I'm cool with it. And they're all like, oh, thank goodness. I'm so glad you're okay with this ending. We have to reshoot.
I don't think anybody would have wanted that ending. That makes me think, like, taking, like, book Knives and giving her that ending would have just been devastating to her character in the books. Because, you know, she's completely over Scott by the end. Yeah, like, and also growing up and moving on, and because at the end she's 18 and she's ready to like go off to college and start her own life without any of the nonsense. Yeah.
So that would have been real something for the movie, and would have been a real different take on what this whole story is kind of about, and that's not what that is. So
yeah, good job to them for having some foresight in that situation.
Oh man. But I kind of want to talk about like so that the movie I like the books more than the movie. Yes, I'm one of those people,
Yes,
but I mean, I don't
that's
always
okay.
like the books more than the movies, but but the movie does have some highlights for me that I did enjoy watching it. And I think the biggest thing is realizing the cast, like who is actually in this film and their roles, and just being like, I already love these people and their roles are great and I wish I could see more of them. Let's just move away
Right?
from Scott Pilgrim. Let's make this about everybody else who's in this
Everybody
movie.
else. Well, it's just
Yes.
like if Scott wasn't like who he was, I guess if he wasn't Michael Cera. Although I think Michael Cera was a fine casting for Scott. Like overall, I think he was fine. But like Michael Cera can't really play like a bad person very well. I don't think. Which I think is a lot of what softened like movie Scott compared to the book Scott. Because book Scott is like a dick. And movie Scott, they're like, well, he's more just like a product of who he is as a person, like in a really nice way. Like, well, he didn't mean all those bad things that happened, so it's okay. But I don't know.
I actually, I don't, I had a little bit different opinion on that. I thought like maybe Michael Cera did do a good job. I don't know, but he made me dislike Scott even more in the film.
Oh, did he really? Okay.
Yes, he gave me major like there were alarms going off everywhere. He
Like red
came off as
flags.
yes, red
Yeah.
flags, everything. He came off as a complete creep. And
I think
just
that's
like
just
for
Michael
real,
Cera.
it
Because I
was
get
like
that from Michael Cera
major.
all the time.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, he pulled it off, especially when he was going on his dates with knives. I'm like, run, run now,
Run,
girl.
girl.
You need to get away. Like, oh my gosh, he was just overly creepy in the film and just a major, major loser. That I just was like,
Yes.
I don't like you. There is nothing to your character in this film. Like, I have nothing to cheer for you. And I am like, I think it's kind of like I said before, like Scott does have a lot more of himself in the books and everything, and like yeah, he is not a good person, but I think it's the way that the art style is drawn and stuff, and it's just kind of like, oh, it's cutesy, and like the characters look more inviting to cheer for them, and then realize, oh, hold up, no, your story. But that's at least how I view the situation and my thoughts on it.
No, I totally get it. The art style in the books lends so much to like just I mean to everything, to the story, to the feelings, to the characters. Brian Lee O'Malley did such a good job like creating the world and the people that he created. And then just making them in the movie, it was just you didn't get a lot of that nuance.
Yeah. I think it's also just kind of weird seeing it as a live action film. Like, it's a wild film that I could say is a visual spectacle, but I don't know if that was necessarily a good or bad thing.
Right. The action scenes in the movie, I love them just because of the style that they are. And a lot of times, like, well, this fight is styled this way, and this fight is styled this way. Like, they're all kind of different in different aspects. Until you get to the end, and that's just a lot of things all the time. But like, because like when the first evil ex-boyfriend shows up, that's when that part of the movie starts. Like everything is just like it's just like dating drama. Until like the guy flies in through the ceiling. And then they start like epic fighting, and it's just like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
You don't see that coming at all.
No. I think it's even funnier just like in the movie, like truly seeing everyone's reactions to the fighting going on and them somehow being aware of its actual existence in the world.
And like Anna Kendrick again comes in clutch here.
Yes, for real.
'Cause she's just like,
And then
what?
Wallace, yeah, yeah. And then Wallace is like, get him! Destroy him!
And Wallace is there just to make the situation worse.
Yes, and then also hit on, yeah, the boyfriend of... Yeah.
I love that scene.
It's so
Because the way she
ridiculous.
reacts to it, like, it's a thing that happens a lot. Stacy brings a new boyfriend somewhere, and then Wallace ends up stealing him by the end of the night.
Yeah. Well, the one part I think for Stacy, like, puts her arm around her boyfriend and, like, kind of pats him, like, no, stay close to me.
Right? She
Yeah.
saw it coming. She knew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. But yeah, the craziness, like, speaking just like everything just crazy, like the music is crazy and the editing style of this film is insane, but the editing is very well done. Like, it's just so crazy, just quickly moves you from one scene to the next, from one location to the next. It does these crazy cuts, these match cuts, the frame slides, and you're in a different location. It's a different day. It's just,
it definitely keeps you on your toes.
Chaotic. Yes. Yes. For sure. So I know I mentioned the cast earlier, and we've already briefly talked about at least two people that I think both of us find as highlights, Aubrey Plaza and Anna Kendrick. We also get Chris Evans in this.
Oh, yes, we do.
And Brie Larson.
She's my favorite.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was kind of like, more screen time, please. I wanted more of that song. It was ridiculous.
I will send you that song because it's a real song. I will send that to you happily because I listen to it all the damn time. Not her version necessarily. They have like a music video cut that was like a promotional thing for the for the movie that you can get on YouTube. But a different band actually wrote the song for the movie. So you can listen to the full song as performed by the original band, but it sounds just about the same.
Nice. But that is kind of a cool thing, too, about the movie, is that she actually did sing, so...
She did, and hearing her sing, like... hearing her as this, like... pop diva, I guess? Like, yeah. What would you call that? This indie pop diva, like, was so perfect for her, and you're not expecting it. Because everything you see her in, like, especially these days, is very, like strong and tough and even tone of voice kind of situation. No, she's always very, like, in her element. And then this role, though, is not what you'd expect Brie Larson to be in. And it just, she's Scott's, like, big ex. The one whose name gets brought up and he, like, becomes a puddle on the floor.
Don't say the E name.
The E. She who must not be named.
Yes, that's right.
But, you know, in her extended role in the books, I love anytime she pops back up in the books, like, it's so good. And then in the movie, you get her just then. Like, here she is, now she's gone.
Like, sad. Come back.
For real.
I was like, I don't want to keep looking at Michael Cera. Show me something else.
Seriously.
Well, I think Chris Evans was something in this movie too.
He's also out of his element. Yeah, that's also like really different than what he usually does.
I mean, he's been kind of like a bad guy in some other things recently nowadays, but seeing him in that crazy role, also it was just kind of funny because I feel like he was trying to have a slightly even deeper voice, and it was just funny. Yeah,
he's trying to be this like tough like action star kind of guy. Ugh.
Those very dark, very defined eyebrows on him were absolutely hilarious. And then where they fight is also hilarious because this big action star and he's on a film set, like in the movie specifically, because it's like the famous, like, I don't know, I always call it like a castle house thing that you see like in everything.
Yes, right.
The thing that is used in Smallville, I believe, the X-Men, I don't know, so many other things.
They can get there for cheap.
Yes. So just a crazy showdown with that. But that scene was kind of funny in the movie because it was also like, now fight all my stunt doubles. Yeah,
they really expand that from the book. Some of them are shortened, but that one's expanded. You get a lot more going on there.
Which was interesting, but I was like, that's okay. Something different. Oh, I also felt like in the movie, Kim didn't get a lot of time to shine. She goes through so much.
She's really like, after Ramona, she's like the next like main heroine, you know, like. But yeah, the movies, they're just like, here's Kim. It's funny because her and Scott used to date, and he broke it off, and she never got past it, and that's the joke.
Yeah, and she's just so deadpan and everything, but. That actress, I just have to laugh at seeing her in different roles because the first thing I ever saw that actress in was the the heyday of Lindsay Lohan, and she was in the movie with her Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Oh my god, that is her.
Yes. Because I kept looking at her, I'm like, I think I've seen you before. And then she is also in the movie about Dick Cheney. She plays one of his daughters. What is that movie? Vice. And that was also really funny. I'm just like, she just keeps popping up.
She has been
random things,
has been all over the place.
Yeah.
Wow. That's funny. I didn't know that. I didn't realize with the wig on her head. I didn't realize that's who that was.
I was like, her face looks familiar enough. And I was like, I think I know who this is. And I'm like, maybe not. And then I looked it up and I'm like, okay, yep. Okay.
Oh, that is awesome.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
Yes. And I think it's kind of funnier, like, even though I have mixed feelings with this movie, it's funnier to watch this movie now instead of when it came out because of how many of these stars have, like, become so much bigger since this movie or have been in so many other things that people might know them more from to be like, OMG, they were in this.
So many people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every 5 minutes, there's, like, a new cameo to, like, keep your eyes ready for.
Mm-hmm. I also didn't really like Ramona that much in the movie. I felt like she just did not have much to her character. It was even less to her character. And then at the end, they try to be like, here, we're going to quickly sum up, like, her character growth and who she is. And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, well, when I watched the movie the first time, I was like, oh, I love Ramona. And I read the books, and I was like, there's a lot going on with Ramona that they don't ever bring up in the movies. And then going back to reread the books and then going back into the movie again, I was just like, I was paying a lot of attention to her throughout the movie. Because I was just like, like, I remember her, like, doing and being so much more in the movie than she actually was. And I think it's probably just because I have, like, the book knowledge going on in the back of my brain, so I understand a lot of the stuff that's happening more. So, like, I have other context to apply to things, but, like, just paying attention to the movie, I realized, like, oh, she's not that fulfilling of a character in the movie. Not at all.
Well, in the movie, it's even more confusing because, like I've already said, I have tons of red flags for Scott in the movie, and then just, like, Ramona just being, like, weirdly cool but not cool with everything, and then just, like, and then you find out, like, with, like, she claims she has that microchip being controlled by the final X at the end, and it's just like, oh, okay, what kind of relationship is this? Like, does she have any say in anything? Does she feel anything? Like, why does she even like Scott in the movies? I have so many questions because I get the idea that Scott only likes her because she's hot and she's different and new, and that's what makes him think he's in love with her, because she's something that he likes and wants, and what he thinks is perfect material is just at that very base level of, I like her, therefore I want her.
In the movie, they really, like, go into that, like, Scott becoming obsessed with Ramona, but we're not going to talk about that at all. And I didn't even realize until I just reread the books that it's Ramona's fault that Scott becomes obsessed with her, because she's using, like, the subspace highway. And I love this. This is one of those things where it's like, this is one of those things where it's like, this is not real world. This is just nonsense. No. But as a delivery girl, you know, she delivers packages on her roller skates, so she's traveling a ton on foot. And she has this ability where she can access what is, like, the subspace highway. Basically, like, a door opens up here and it teleports her over here. In that space in the middle of those two doors, she travels through basically, like, the dreamscape, sort of. And she ends up using the quote-unquote subspace highway that goes through Scott's dreams. Not on purpose, like, it's just that that section of the highway just happens to be his brain, and it's just so convenient to her, like, daily life. So she keeps popping up in his dreams, and when he finally meets her, he's like, oh my god, this girl is real. And, like, stalks the crap out of her until they start dating and stuff. And in the book, she's like, wow, that's totally my fault because, like, I'm totally, absolutely, like, barging in through your dreams. And in the movie, they just don't even. It's, like, such a throwaway line that you can't hardly even understand what she's saying. And then never gets brought up again. But in the books, like, the subspace highway is there. It's ever present. Like, there's stuff going on with it all the time. Maybe that was just too much for the movie.
That's very possible, because I think there's even more stuff, too, in the books about explaining more of, like, that, like, we kind of already hinted at that, like, Ramona has a ton of baggage too. Like, her and Scott are very similar, and like they both put themselves through a bunch of crap, and like I think Ramona hasn't gotten over like her going through guys just like Scott goes through girls, and just, or girls and guys for Ramona. And the like idea of just like she's only caring about herself, just like almost this idea of like Scott almost caring about himself in some ways, and just like they're not really looking out for the other person, and she's just, I think she was like in the books also like really considered like really depressed too, just like Scott is, and just not getting over these relationships and clinging on to the last relationship they both have and trying to use other people to make them feel something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we get a lot more of that in the books than than we do in the movies, so it's a very interesting story that at very, very early face value, it's like, oh, this is a really funny story about like fighting exes video game style, and then you're like, hold up, who are these people? What's going on underneath? So it's pretty interesting that it can have such like a layered story, especially in the books, just like so many things and so many characters with all their own unique stories.
And getting to watch the characters in the books like grow up as people and change and even like grow apart and stuff like that, like it's so interesting, because by the time like the books ends, people are really starting to like strike out on their own. And Scott is really pushed up to like build himself up to go on living now that his friends are now like, they're not taking care of him anymore, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing that like we get in the books, especially towards the end, is like, which you kind of get something like that in the movie, this like realization that, oh, he's not as good of a guy as he thinks he is. And like the book, it drives it home a lot more about like, no, you've been crappy to like everyone you've been with. You use everybody, all these girlfriends you have. The way you view things is incorrect, because he always views himself as like the savior, the hero. Because there's that part where he has a conversation with Kim in one of the later books about like, oh yeah, I saved you from that guy in like grade school like, or whatever.
No, you didn't.
Like, you just punched a nerd with glasses. Like, for no reason, you fought him. He didn't keep me, like, and he had this whole thing about, like, he held her captive on the roof of the school, and he had to go through hundreds of goons to take him down, and it's like, no, dude, your memory is faulty, because he likes to say lots of things about, I don't drink, I don't remember it that way, I'm a nice person, and we're like, dude,
like, you drink all the time, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you also try to pretend, you know, you don't want to cope with things you've done, so you try to invent a different version and put yourself in your safe space of video game nerd world.
Like, it's like getting through from beginning to end, and then like going back through, like once the characters start making these realizations, it's just you can view everything that's happened and through a different lens. And it's not flattering to anybody. It doesn't,
no.
You know, definitely not Scott, but even the other people, it doesn't make anybody look better for it. You know, you strip the humor away and you look at like the actual human problems underneath it. And it's just like, whoa, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. I think in the book, the only people I really like felt really, really sorry for that felt like they were kind of the most normal were probably like Kim in the books, because she just like kept being put in all these crappy situations, and I'm just like, leave, and then she finally does, and I'm like, okay, now don't come back. Start your new life fresh without all these people. And then like I felt so bad, because Knives shows up so much in the books. Like, you see her so much, and I'm just like, no, please go away, please, for your own health and safety. Just so sad.
Poor Knives.
Yeah, at least she gets some growth though in the end. It's okay for her, both in the movie and in the book, so we can be thankful for that. I feel like, kind of in a sense too, I feel like most of the females, like especially in the books, like are actually the most level-headed out of everybody in a lot of ways.
Maybe not Envy, because she's kind of like the female version of Scott in a way, because she just goes from bad boyfriend to bad boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because she can't, well, it's just one of those self-confidence things, I think, with her, where she just can't see the positive aspects in herself, so she can't have that in a relationship, because she can't see it, kind of thing.
That's true. I mean, yeah, it's I guess you could like argue some of the other characters are a little bit more level-headed, but no, it's true. Like they all have flaws, they all have issues. It definitely shows, yeah, that we all are only human, and people can be not so nice humans as well. But they can also try to learn from and grow.
Did you have any favorite characters?
I don't know if I would say favorites. Not really. I don't think. I think I enjoyed like seeing like kind of cameo roles in a sense of like some well-known stars pop up in the movie. But I don't know. I think I was reading it more like I wasn't really attached to any character or any time in the movie or the books, but I was just more of like, I knew the basis of like what the story was, but I didn't know everything. So I was just like interested to keep reading to see where it was going.
Right.
Because I couldn't quite tell where it was going. So that's how it was for me. Did you have any favorite characters or anybody that stood out to you?
Most of my favorite characters come from like who portrayed them in the film, I think. Just because like, oh, that part was really cool. But in the books, anytime Stacy and Wallace are together and they form this like best friend bond out of pure hate for whoever it is that is like ruining Scott's life, like they're my favorite people, I think. They are like the king and queen of like petty damnation. And I love it. Anytime they're both together, or maybe it's Ramona and Wallace. I think it's Ramona and Wallace. They come together and they're just like, oh, are we hating this person now? Okay, let's make it worse. And I love how like Wallace will text Scott like through Ramona's phone because of course Scott doesn't have a phone.
Yes. Can't forget about that.
I love that so much. Like Book Wallace just gets he's such a better character than his movie counterpart, and it makes me just want to like slap him so much. I'm like, stop taking care of this loser. Like, go live your own life. Like,
put him out. Yeah. On the street, not kill him. No.
I mean, whatever. Man.
I was like, one card.
Like, whatever works.
Whatever you want to do, church.
Whatever works.
I don't know. Overall, I was very surprised because, like, especially reading the books for and stuff, there was a lot more depth and more storyline than I initially thought about this. I thought it was just very, very simply just a guy fell in love with a girl and just had her win her heart by fighting all the exes.
Close.
Close. I mean, yes, that is the initial story, but there's so much more involved, and that our main character is not very cool.
Nope, not at all.
Well, do you have any other thoughts or final thoughts about Scott Pilgrim?
There was one additional piece of Scott Pilgrim stuff that came out. I think it came out over COVID. Many of the actors and actresses in the film, they got together like in like a Zoom kind of setup, and they did like a script like reread of Scott Pilgrim. Like, because this is way after the fact, right? Like, some of those people have gone on to become who they are, but they all got together and they did like this. It's on YouTube. It's like a 45-minute long like thing that they put together, but I haven't got to watch it yet. I hear it's really, really cool. I might do that today, actually. But that's something else that has happened in the recent past.
Okay, yeah, that should be interesting. I haven't checked that out either.
No, other than that, I think that wraps it up. Well, listeners, we thank you, as always, for coming to check us out. If you have a moment, follow us on all the social medias everywhere, especially YouTube and Instagram. Got some extra content going on there. But if you have anything that you would like us to cover in the future, just reach out and let us know. We'd love to chat with you more. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you all have a great week.